from the Coffee House Forge. This project started about a month ago and turned into quite an involved process. Me and my son was messing around one weekend and he decided he wanted to start forging his first knife. So I fired the forge up and was working with him on forging the knife. While he was forging that, I happened to find an old file laying in my toolbox that had been discarded, was pretty much wore out. And I had seen several folks turn files into knives, so I said, let's give it a shot. And that's how this whole process started. Now, this is the finished product. Ended up with a knife that has roughly a 5.5 inch blade, and it's got a roughly 4 3/4 inch handle, giving an overall length of right at 10 1/4 inches. This ended up becoming quite an involved project because not only did it go from forging the knife blade and tang, I ended up pouring the brass bolsters and guards and bolsters myself, using smelting old keys and a handful of pennies to add the zinc for toughness. Then it went into making the leather ringlets in order to make the leather stacked handle from old discarded belts. I quickly realized this was going to be a long video, so what I've done is I've broken it into 3 parts. There's going to be forming the blade and shaping the blade, which is probably the shortest part of the videos. The next step we'll talk about the brass work, from smelting down the old keys into the molds, to shaping it, to forming it, to fitting the guards and the bolsters and pinning it in. And then the leather ringlets, the sanding, the grinding, the forming, the polishing, until we get to the finished knife. I hope you enjoy the process. I'm glad you come along with the journey. I'll keep it as short as possible, but I will break it down to part 1, 2, 3. The blade, the brass work, the leather, and the finished product. Alright, at this part I'm pretty much just trying to get some bevel handle into it. I'm also taking out any hammer marks for my big hammering. This middle is pretty hard. I didn't anneal it first because it was a project on a spur of the moment. I've got my bevel pretty much set, a little more work to do to it, and then also I need to go and get my tip fixed. At this point I've got the knife shaped to where I want it. The handle part's going to be kind of important. As you can see there, I'm wider towards the back than I am on the blade side, because this knife is going to get a guard. I'm going to have to trim that up, and to where a guard will slide all the way down nice and neat. Looking down the center line, everything's nice and center. It's pretty much the same thickness throughout, top to bottom. Everything's on the straight side, so I'm about ready to mark it up and hit the grinder. And this is where the grinding starts. So I've got my basic mark of how I want the tip, firing up the 2x72,
and it's time to start sanding down some metal. So, word for you folks out there about safety. This was actually done about 6 months ago, and since then I've gotten smarter and wiser in my ways. I do have a full face shield and respirator I now use whenever I grind. I'll still generally not always grind with a glove on because it helps me get a better feel when I'm working certain parts of the sander. I've also changed things around to where my sander's lowered down to where I have more control as well. So, safety, number one, guys, wear your safety equipment. Keep my apron on where it should have been, which it wasn't on that day. That was an August day, probably about 100 degrees outside. It really doesn't make an excuse, but we got to keep safety number one. Definitely don't want to go to the hospital, don't want no lung issues going on. So, at any rate, sit back, enjoy the music I'm fixing to turn on, and it's just going to be a whole bunch of sanding until I get the knife to where I want it to be. Okay, all I'm doing here is starting to cut in my primary bevels. Got an idea of what I'm looking for, so it's just a matter of laying down the bevel, getting it to where I want it to be. And part one will be just about complete here. This is a very short video. Didn't do a lot of work on this one because at the time I didn't know I was turning it into a YouTube video. So I appreciate you suffering your way through this one. Part two will be coming up, and that's where we will be getting into the smelting of the key to actually make the guard and the pommel. Quite a bit of work went into that one, and I do have some decent video footage of that. Do a little pop up there, just let the folks know this is my new mask and my new respirator that I do use when I'm on the grinders now. And just everybody be safe. Finish up the grind. Here is the final shape, and we'll be moving on to part two, which is making the guards. Again, thank you folks for watching my video. It's been a while putting this thing together. I appreciate you supporting my YouTube channel. If you like what you see, please leave a comment. If you don't like what you see, leave a comment also. Let me know what I can do differently, what I can do better. We're all new at this. We're all amateurs. We're all just starting out somewhere, and I'm definitely just starting out. This editing and so forth is new to me. I hope to get better as time goes along. I could always use some support, both through comments as well as now on the YouTube channel. I have a contribution box if you want to throw a little tip my way because you appreciate the video. It'll help me improve my equipment and cameras and make better videos for everybody. So again, thank you. Visit my Etsy store. Visit me on Facebook. Visit me on Custom Made. All of them, Coffee House Forge. One word. Thank you. You guys have a blessed day.